Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So, good evening to everybody. Thank you to Brother Tan, Brother Lo, who very kindly gave me a guided tour of the center and told me about some of the many activities you have here. It's very inspiring to see how much work the Sakyayen Center does, supporting the local community here, as well as spreading the teachings of the Lord Buddha, which we all have faith in. As we know, the Lord Buddha was born in the forest in India 2,600 years ago, and then after his enlightenment he practiced and wandered around northern India teaching what is now called Buddhism. In those days they didn't call it Buddhism, he would call it a way out of suffering and stress. And that is the main purpose of his teachings, is to teach us as human beings how to live more stress-free lives and find more happiness, more inner peace, more inner happiness, which I think you all aspire to as well. And what the Buddha had to teach was something that is attractive and interesting now to people all over the world. You may all live here in Melaka. Myself, I'm originally from London, UK, but out of interest in the Buddhist teachings, I travelled to Thailand when I was 20 and began training and became a Buddhist monk there with a teacher you've probably heard of, Venerable Ajahn Chah. So he was my first inspiration to become a Buddhist monk, and I feel blessed and very fortunate that I encountered his teachings from an early age and had the chance to travel to Thailand and become a monk and train under him and his fellow monks at his monastery. So I lived in Thailand for about 18 years. First at Wat Nanachat, the international monastery, and also spending a lot of time with Ajahn Chah, even though he was quite sick, until he passed away in 1992. Then I moved to stay with a teacher who was a student of Ajahn Chah called Ajahn Anand, who lives on the coast of southeast Thailand. And from living with Venerable Ajahn Anand back in 1998, we received an invitation to visit Australia and teach Buddhism there for a few weeks. And we got to know many Buddhists in Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne and Perth. But there was one family called the Su family, who are originally from Melaka. Just lived down the road. We passed nearby where they lived a few minutes ago, who many members of that family have moved to Melbourne to study and then to work. But they had faith in Ajahn Chah and his monks. And so after meeting myself and Ajahn Anand in Melbourne in 1998, they had a plan to buy some forest land on the edge of Melbourne and invite us back to start a monastery. So in 2001 I moved to Melbourne from Thailand, and I've been there ever since, which is about 18 years. So I spent the first 20 years of my life in the UK, the next 18 years in Thailand, and then the last 18 years on the edge of Melbourne in the forests. So I sometimes say I was born and raised in England, I aged in Thailand, and I'll probably end up dying in Australia. Because that is the cycle of a human being. You're born, you age, and then you die. But probably more significantly, it's just a sign of how global the interest in Buddhism and the Buddhist teachings are nowadays. In the old days, it was something that was just for India. Then Buddhist monks and nuns and Buddhist lay people traveled out from India, some going north to China and Japan, Tibet. Some came south to Sri Lanka, Burma, Malaysia, Thailand, and now Buddhists are establishing Buddhist centers, temples and monasteries all over the world. Literally in every continent of the world now you can find Buddhist practitioners. So that sometimes raises a question, why is Buddhism becoming so popular? Why are people so interested in the Buddhist teachings? And why in this day and age, this modern day, are people still interested in what the Buddha had to say? When I first became interested in Buddhism, I was 16 years old, and I read books about what the Buddha taught, and I found his teachings very, very convincing, very reasonable, and very useful for helping me to understand my life a little bit better as a teenager, as good as you can understand life as a teenager. But I also had the thought, I had a fear, it was actually a fear in my mind, I had a fear that the actual practice of the Buddhist teachings was now dead, no longer something you could find in the world other than in books. I hadn't yet met a Buddhist monk. I hadn't yet practiced the Buddhist teachings like meditation, or I hadn't been to a center or a temple like this. So I had this doubt or fear that maybe Buddhism was no longer alive in the world. It was a kind of a dead teaching just to be found in books. So I was very happily surprised one day when I saw a BBC documentary about Ajahn Chah and his teachings, this forest monk, called The Mindful Way, which you can still see on YouTube and other sources these days. And that opened my eyes up to the possibility that there are still Buddhist monks living in the world and living very simply and practicing very directly what the Buddha taught. That made me feel very happy to see monks, to hear Ajahn Chah's teachings, and to realize that it is something that's still very alive and relevant in the world today. It's not a dead religion or something from the past that is old-fashioned, out of date. I realized it's still fashionable. Seeing Ajahn Chah on the TV, believe it or not, and then eventually joining a meditation group when I was at university, and finding the first few sparks of peace in my own mind through practicing meditation. And you're probably the same as me. If you've ever tried meditation, you probably found it's quite challenging, quite difficult. We all know what the monkey mind is like. You sit down and the teacher says, bring attention to your breath, follow the feeling of the breath going in and out, and you can do it for about 10 seconds, and then your mind starts thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow, what you did yesterday, and all kinds of other things. And it's difficult, at first anyway, it's difficult. But I did have a few moments of peace, clarity, that gave me some confidence that what the Buddha was teaching is true, in that if we learn to pay more attention to our own mind, develop more personal awareness of our own mind, we can understand more about ourselves, and we can find some peace and happiness of the kind that you cannot buy at the shop or find external from you. It's peace that arises inside your own heart. So that led me on to want to find out more about Buddhism, practice more meditation, and that eventually led me to Thailand, where I was lucky enough to encounter Ajahn Chah and his students, and then eventually I became a monk. So the teachings of the Buddha have now spread all over the world: Europe, America, North America, South America, Africa, Russia, and of course all over Asia. So it's no longer something that's very much a minority religion or very much an old-fashioned kind of teaching. It's very relevant in the modern world. And you'll find people who are interested in Buddhism in all walks of life, all ages, all genders, all places in this world. People have found something beneficial from Buddhism. Because we all want to be happy. You know, if I asked you sitting here, is there anyone who doesn't want to be happy? No one will say yes, will they? We all want to be happy as human beings, and even animals want to be happy. You know, animals can't speak, but you can tell they want to be happy. They want to be free from stress, suffering. They want to be safe, secure. Human beings are the same. We want to be safe, peaceful, and happy in our own minds. And the Buddhist way is one way, maybe even the best way, but certainly it's one way that we can achieve that. And that's why people are becoming more interested in what the Buddha had to teach. And I think you already know that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You have already had a taste of some of this happiness that arises when you practice what the Buddha taught. What the Buddha was interested in is how to make this mind at peace with the world when this world we live in isn't always a predictable place. You can't always know what's going to happen next in your life, or in the economy, or in society, or in your family, your workplace, with your health. There's all kinds of things coming up in our life. We can't be sure what happens next, where our life is going, but he wanted to find some certainty in his life, because he said that would become something that gives me some peace and happiness. And the only way to find certainty is to understand your own mind better and understand the world through understanding your own mind. So he once, as you probably know, he gave a very well-known teaching that our mind is the forerunner, the leader of everything we do in life. So all our experiences of happiness and suffering, pleasure and pain, they all begin with our mind. They're mental experiences. And whatever we do in life, whatever we say, whatever we do, and even what we're thinking, all begins in the mind, doesn't it? We have intentions and thoughts come up first before we do anything. For example, tonight you had the thought, oh, there's a Buddhist monk coming to give a talk here. Maybe I'll go and listen, see what he has to say. You had to have that thought, whether it was from a friend inviting you, or you just saw the notice, and then you had the thought, I will go. That came up for you in your mind first. Then you put it into action. So you got in your car tonight, or you walked down here and you came here. And you've completed that action. That's one, you might say, one little piece of karma. We would also say good karma, because generally it's very good to go to places where you can hear teachings of what the Buddha taught and meet with people who are peaceful, well-behaved, good people. You know, many good things have arisen from your decision to come here tonight. But we would say that's karma, good karma, and it all started with a thought in your mind that you then put into action. So the Buddha said our mind is the forerunner of everything we do, and it's the beginning of our happiness or our stress. It all begins with the way we think, our intentions, what we do. Therefore, all his teachings are giving us tools and ways to get to know our mind better, so that we can develop it in a good way to bring ourselves more happiness. Because ultimately our happiness from what the Buddha pointed out, it begins with us. And this is different from maybe some other explanations of what goes on in life from other religions or science, which, some people say everything that happens to you in life is just random, by chance. Some people say everything is an act of God or gods. But in Buddhism we say everything comes back down to our own mind and the kind of karma we're developing through our day, through our life. That's really the most important thing to understand. And our happiness and suffering is something we have to take personal responsibility for. Because if we have a thought, who is thinking that thought? We are. Maybe other people influence our thoughts. They talk to us, we learn things, we interact with society, true. But if you have a thought, whether it's a good thought or a bad thought, who is thinking that thought? Well, we are. And there's no escaping that fact. So if you have a good thought, a kind thought, or what we call a skillful thought, that is going to bring you some happiness and some benefit already. Just as the thought arises, you already feel a little bit better. So maybe when you have a thought of kindness, you're thinking of someone, you want to help them or support them, somebody who's suffering in some way, already your mind feels quite good when you have that thought. Or you have the thought maybe tonight to come listen to a talk, practice some meditation, already you start to feel quite good from that. So our thoughts are the beginning of our happiness, or sometimes we get caught into unskillful thoughts and they're the beginning of our suffering. But the Buddha pointed out this all starts with ourselves. And that's for me, when I was beginning my practice of Buddhism, I found that very helpful, because up until the point when I heard the Buddha's teachings, if I ever had a problem in my life or some issue or some suffering, I would always be looking around to blame someone else. So if I was unhappy with when I was working, I had to work for a little while before I was a monk, I would have to blame my co-worker or my boss, blame the job. Or if something was going wrong in the family, I'd look for someone to blame. Oh, it's my dad's fault or my brother's fault, or something like that. Or maybe it's my friend's fault. Whatever it was, my usual habit would to be blame somebody for my own problem. The last person I would look to be responsible for any suffering would be myself. Very rarely would I do that. Nearly always I would say it's because of this, because of that. Even when I started practicing Buddhism, I would say, oh, if I have a problem, it must be my karma. And I'd start blaming maybe myself in a former life. So I said, oh, last life I must have been really bad and caused so much trouble. This life I have all these problems. So I'd even blame myself in the past. It's only when I started thinking more deeply about things, and particularly when I started meditating, I realized that actually everything is arising from our own intentions, our own actions, and our own thoughts, both good and bad. And even though other people are involved in our happiness and suffering in life, really it starts with us, as a thought and as a feeling, as an emotion. And I think this is something that everybody in the world now is realizing. Our state of mind is important. What we think, how our emotions are, how we're relating to the world from the inside going out is very important for how we live our lives, how successful we'll be, how happy we'll be. So I think that for me, that was one of my first insights. So when I had this insight, I'd been practicing meditation for a while, and I realized, if I'm unhappy, usually it's because I'm thinking negative thoughts. And those are my thoughts, and I can't really blame anyone for that. I have to take responsibility. So I'm going to start letting go of those thoughts and replacing them with better thoughts. So I started thinking, well, maybe I should practice more dana, more generosity, keep precepts, practice some meditation, improve my mindfulness, and start reflecting on the truth. That will help my mind to be happier. I sort of understood that. And then I also realized that some of those people I'd been blaming in the past for any problem weren't as bad as I thought. And often those people are people who had helped me as well. particularly, say, family members. When I started meditating, I realized, oh, I've received a lot of help from my family. Before that, I was aware of the fact, but I maybe never really fully appreciated, say, how much my parents helped me, my brothers, sisters, other family members helped me. I never quite appreciated it. But as soon as I started meditating, I realized, oh, I've received a lot in my life from family, teachers, even friends. Brought up a lot of gratitude. When I first opened my eyes in meditation and realized that, brought up a lot of gratitude. So there was one day when I'd meditated, and I hadn't meditated for more than a few weeks. I was meditating, I was quite peaceful at home, and I realized how much I'd received from other people. So when I finished my meditation, I went to my mum, who was in the kitchen. Many mums spend a lot of time in the kitchen preparing food for the family. And I went up to my mum, I said, Mum, you've done so much for me through my life. I just want to say thank you. And at that time I was only 17 years old, so my mum looked at me a bit suspiciously and said, what's wrong with you? Because I'd never said thank you before. This was a new experience for me and for her, and so she didn't accept it at first. She thought there's some catch here. She said, what do you want? You must be after something. So I said, no, actually, I don't want anything from you. I just want to thank you because I realize you've done a lot for me and I've never thanked you. So this is the time I'm thanking you. But that's a genuine feeling that arose in my heart from meditation. It's like when you turn your attention inwards, you start to see yourself a little bit more clearly. And one thing you notice is, oh, you receive a lot of help in life from other people in all walks of life, even from strangers. And then the next thing you think is, maybe there's something I can do to give something back and help other people as I've been helped. Maybe I can help others. So I had that thought come up really strongly, and that made me think, maybe I should practice more dana, because up until then my Buddhist practice had been mainly books, listening to talks like this, going to a meditation society, but I hadn't done much dana. So I thought maybe I should do a bit more dana in my life. So as well as practicing Buddhist meditation, I started to do some voluntary work. And then even once I realized there was a Buddhist monastery in the UK, I started to go and do some dana there, actually, making food, offering it to monks. And I found I was very happy doing that. So for me, it was like introducing another kind of happiness in my life, the actual happiness coming from helping other people, not even thinking so much of myself. But I also knew it would be helping me as well, because when we practice dana, what are you doing? You're letting go of some of your own selfishness, your stinginess, your own attachment. Because by necessity, if you do some dana, you have to think of others. You're thinking of the Buddhist association here, or maybe there's some poor people or some sick people or some good charity you can help. Like, just for an example, you probably all heard where I come from, there's a lot of bushfires this year, a lot of damage to property, a lot of people have been hurt, even killed, and a lot of animals, thousands and thousands of animals have been killed by the fires. So suddenly, 2 days ago, there's one comedian in Australia. She started raising funds, because she's quite well known, for the bushfire victims, and in 2 days raised $20 million. That's because people all feel very sorry for the victims of these bushfires. That's just one example. When you see a need, then you think, is there something I can do to help? And you do it. You offer a donation or you give some support in some way, and you feel good doing that. And it's not always easy, because maybe you have to give up your time or your energy or your money or your food or whatever it is you're giving. It's not always easy to do that. But when you do it, how do you feel? You feel happy. You feel good that you've done something very meaningful. You know, helped another human being who's suffering, who really needs help. Even an animal, you help. There's one video going around of a lady who picked up a koala bear because it was burning. The forest around it was burning and this koala bear is burning. So she took off her shirt, the lady, to pick up and wrap up the koala bear, took it into her car, gave it water, and took it to a sanctuary. This is what we call dana. So when you practice dana, it does mean you have to sacrifice a little bit of your own convenience, comfort, come out of your safety zone, your comfort zone a little bit to help somebody else in need. But how do you feel afterwards? You feel good. You feel happy that you've done something useful for someone else, whether it's just a small thing or a bigger thing, doesn't matter, but you've done that, you feel good, you have a good memory, and you've done something useful. I think you've all done this before, you know this, but sometimes we have to remind ourselves why we do it. Because sometimes we do dana out of habit, you just follow other people or the family or the tradition. But we must also remember when we're doing this, we're doing it to let go of some of our own attachment and bring our mind up to a slightly higher level. So in Buddhism we call this making merit through practicing generosity, and it's a very common way that Buddhists do practice making merit. Merit literally means the goodness, the happiness in your heart that arises when you do good things. So if you help somebody, you usually feel good about that. That's the merit. Even the recipient, the one who receives your dana, feels good. They also make merit when they recognize the good that you're doing. And this feeling of goodness can last a long time, not just 1 minute or 1 day. Maybe you've done some dana in the past and you remember 10 years later what you did. You feel good about that. You have memories come up, you have good feelings arise, and that can be quite helpful to you through your life, remembering some of the good things you've done, helping the association, helping a school, helping a hospital, helping a bushfire victim, whatever it may be, or offering food to sangha, to monks. All kinds of things we do give us memories through our life that uplift us. So the Buddha said one reason we do offer dana and make merit is to uplift our mind. It buoys us. So he compared it to like when we're on the ocean. If you are floating on the ocean, you need something to keep you up. Otherwise you sink, you drown. So life can sometimes be like an ocean, and the pressures of work, family, our health, society, all kinds of issues can weigh down on us, so it feels a bit like we're in the ocean sinking. So we need things to bring us up again, to like a life belt or a life raft. So making merit is like that. It brings our mind up. And one of the qualities that arises when you make merit is you often feel a certain kind of joy. The Buddha's word for it is piti pamoja. And piti pamoja means inner joy, happiness that arises from the good actions we do when we remember them, when we're aware of the goodness we do. And joy is always uplifting. It's like this energy comes up. So it actually strengthens our mind, makes our mind more strong, more happy in itself. And that's very useful for meeting with some of the difficulties of daily life. If you make merit, then you feel good in yourself. When you go to work, you have to deal with problems at work or just driving your car. Like you notice if you drive your car after offering some dana, usually you can be more patient with the traffic jam. If you haven't done anything meritorious, you haven't done any dana, maybe you get in the traffic jam and straight away you're angry. There's not much merit in the mind. But when you make merit, your mind is uplifted, so then it helps you to deal with little problems and issues that come up. So the Buddha encouraged us to make merit regularly in our life, and dana, generosity, kindness to others is one way we make merit. But there's other ways of making merit as well. Keeping precepts, trying to follow the Pancha Sila, the 5 precepts in daily life. So consciously abstaining from killing, from stealing, from sexual misconduct, from lying and malicious speech, and from taking drink and drugs. You all heard this before, the 5 precepts. But the Buddha said this is great merit when we do it even for 1 day. You know, say today, one day, Sunday, the 5th of January 2020, you decide today is my day, I'll keep the 5 precepts completely, fully, knowingly, with good intention. The Buddha said you're making a very powerful karmic act there. Your mind is being brought up a little level. Because that means today you won't have killed anything, stolen, you won't have told a lie, you won't have got drunk. So your mind is being treated in the best possible way. You're treating yourself as a human being with respect. And generally the result of keeping precepts is other people respect you as well. I once heard a story about a man in Malaysia who, when he was 18 years old, he was thinking about his life. What do I want to do with my life? What's important to me? What's meaningful in life? What's my goal? What's my purpose as a human being? And he decided, I think one of the most important things in life is to be honest. And he was aware already that, you know, some people are not honest in society. There's a lot of dishonesty, corruption, and so on. That's the way it is. But he had this feeling, I want to be someone who's honest. If I can only do one thing in life, may I be an honest person. Not steal, not cheat, not be corrupt. Just be honest to my friends, my family, and even to strangers. Be honest in what I do, what I say. He took this very seriously, so he made a kind of a vow or an oath. And he said, this life I'm going to try and be honest and follow this as my guiding principle. This is a true story. So this man started, he finished education, he went to work. He went to work and he was always honest. And the people around him in his job, some were honest, but some maybe not so honest. But everybody got to know this man is honest. So like if 2 people had an argument, I'm right, you're wrong, they would go to this man to sort out the argument. They'd ask him for a decision because everyone got to know this man is honest. He doesn't lie, he's not biased, he's not a cheat. So if we have a problem, he'll give a fair, honest answer. So people started to respect him. When they had a dispute, an argument, they would go to him to help solve it. When they needed some advice, honest advice, they'd go to him. Even his boss liked him because he knew, I can trust this man, he's honest. So this one simple thing, to be honest, started to define who this man was. It became his kind of character. This guy is honest, you can trust him, you can go to him, he won't cheat you, he won't harm you, he's honest. This even got to the point where in his local village, town, the other people in the town got to know this is the one, not the only one, but one honest man in his town. They trusted him. And some people, the men would go abroad to work because they're poor. They go to the Middle East, whichever country, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, to earn money in construction, other jobs. And when they sent their money home, the families were receiving all this money and they think, what can we do with our money? We don't trust banks. They don't trust the bank. We don't want to give the money to the bank. We don't trust them. You know, I'm not saying banks are untrustworthy, but that's how they thought. What can we do? And somebody had the idea, we'll give this money to this man because he's honest. And we know he's been honest for many years now. This was when he was in his 30s, 40s. So one family gave all their savings for this man to look after. They said, can you look after our money for us? And he said, sure, as a favor I'll do it. And I won't take any interest, I won't charge a price. If you need your money back, you just come to me, I'll give it you back. So he looked after their money. Then another family heard. They thought, oh, that sounds good, let's do that. And then another family, and then another family. So in the end, the whole district, many people were giving this man their money to look after, and whenever they needed it, they went to him, he'd give it to them. And he wouldn't charge anything for this service, he just did it as a friendly favor. So when he came to die, I don't know how old he was, maybe 80 when he died, had a good happy life. He had a funeral, and when the funeral happened, thousands of people attended his funeral. So all the journalists and the TV were interested. They said, why are so many people attending this ordinary guy's funeral? They wanted to know, so they came as well. And they interviewed people and they said, why this guy, why did you come to his funeral? Like, he's not a politician or a celebrity or film star. He's just an ordinary guy. Why are there so many people here? And they all said, because this was an honest man and he's helped so many people simply by being honest. He gave them a lot of confidence, a lot of faith in being honest and in what he did. So he had a more popular funeral than many other important figures in his district. And so people remembered that and they appreciated that gift he gave to them. And the Buddha said, when you keep precepts, it's a gift. It's actually one of the greatest gifts you can give. Like, dana is a gift, giving donations or food or other things you give, that's a gift, of course. But the gift of sila, or morality, honesty, integrity, is also a gift. And the Buddha said it's an even harder gift to give others, because it takes a lot of effort. You have to be aware of yourself if you're going to be honest, not tell a lie, not cheat. It takes effort, you have to be aware, it takes practice. But if you do it, it's a great gift to other people, because we need that, don't we? We need people in society who are honest. And when you have an honest person, it means everyone around them can feel safe. This honest person is not going to cheat you, harm you. It's inspiring, uplifting. So again, when you keep precepts, or even you see someone else keep precepts, it lifts your mind up. You feel happy. That's probably why you like to see monks. Like, monks generally are keeping precepts. You can trust them. They won't harm you. They won't gossip about you. They won't steal your things. They're honest and trustworthy. So when you meet a monk, you feel happy, very happy. But also lay people, you can feel happy once you know someone who's honest, trustworthy. That's a blessing for the world. It's a gift for the world. They give safety, security. They won't harm you. So you can feel at ease when you're with those people. So they bring respect up in you. You respect them and you get a good example. So the Buddha said this is another way we make merit, by keeping precepts, being honest, being kind, helpful. This is very useful for the world. The final way the Buddha said we make merit is through what we call bhavana, cultivating the mind in all the good qualities that come through meditation, such as mindfulness, patience, and wise reflection, and effort and energy, and it improves our faith and our understanding of the teachings. Many good qualities come when we practice bhavana, cultivating the mind. So the Buddha said this is actually the highest kind of merit. If you look at merit as a hierarchy, bhavana is really the best of all, but of course it's the hardest. And we all know it's very hard to make our mind peaceful, to be mindful. It takes some effort, doesn't it? But it's worth it. The Buddha actually said a few moments of mindfulness makes your life worthwhile. You're alive. He said when you're not mindful, it's like you die. You die from the world when you're not mindful, because you're not fully aware of who you are, what you're doing. So you'll notice this particularly when you meditate. If you're meditating and you lose your mindfulness, you're practicing meditation and you lose your mindfulness, your mind drifts off. It's like you go to sleep, or even like you die for a few minutes or a few moments. Then you catch yourself, your mind comes back to the present moment. This is like you wake up again, or you are born again, you're alive again. So sometimes people talk about Buddhism, and they talk about Buddhism, rebirth, karma, rebirth, reincarnation. Actually, the Buddha didn't talk a lot about those things. They're not that relevant to us. They are part of the teachings, but they're not so practical. What he talked more about was waking up in the present moment, developing mindfulness through meditation and mindfulness in daily life, to cultivate this self-awareness, so you're more aware of your thoughts, your state of mind, and you know whether you're thinking skillful, good thoughts, or more unskillful thoughts that are leading to stress, suffering. You have to be mindful to know that. No one else can do it for you. So every moment of mindfulness, the Buddha said, is like a moment your mind doesn't die. It takes you to the deathless. Nobody likes to die. Nobody likes the thought of death. If you want to stay alive, practice mindfulness. Your mind is constantly alive then. They call Nibbana, which is the fruit of practicing mindfulness to the point where you've cleared away all the delusions, all the attachments from your mind. They call Nibbana the deathless. There's no more being born and dying when you reach Nibbana. That's the highest fruits of Buddhist practice. And this comes through practicing mindfulness. Every moment of mindfulness is a moment towards the deathlessness of the mind, the deathless nature of the mind. So if you want to live forever, practice mindfulness. We're not talking about the mind, the body here. Obviously our body gets old, we can't stop that. One day it will stop working, that's nature. But the mind, trained in mindfulness, they say, doesn't die. So how do you understand this? Well, when you practice mindfulness meditation, what do you find out? You find out that your mind is constantly picking up new thoughts and new moods, new mental states every moment of the day. From moment to moment we have different feelings arising, passing away. So the Buddha said, if you watch that, you watch your mind more closely, you pay attention, which is what you're doing in meditation, you'll notice in your mind arising and ceasing, all the thoughts arising, ceasing, or you could say being born and then dying, born and dying. One moment you feel very happy, you have a thought about your friend, you're happy thinking of your friend, or you think of something you like, you're happy. Then you have a memory, a bad memory of something that didn't go very well in your day, you feel sad, or you feel irritated or angry. You'll notice through your day, your mind is up and down like this all the time. One moment happy, next moment sad, one moment feel quite ordinary, then next moment feel excited, next moment feel bored. It changes, doesn't it? If you start paying attention to your mind in meditation, you'll notice your mind is changing all the time. If you never practice mindfulness, you never realize this. But as you become more aware, you're aware of the impermanent nature of your own mind, how thoughts come and go. And the Buddha said that insight is so helpful to us as human beings. It's almost the highest merit you can ever make, because it gives you an understanding of the true nature of us as humans. We're changing all the time. Our body is changing, our mind is changing. And I don't just mean change your mind, one day I like this, one day I don't like this. I don't mean quite like that. I mean the nature of the mind is changing. That kind of understanding helps us to understand the whole world much better. Because a lot of our suffering comes when we don't see change and we can't accept change. Our mind is not in tune with reality. And one thing they point out nowadays is that the world seems to be changing faster than before. If you think about it, with technology, computer, IT technology, other kinds of science, medical science, all the kinds of science and technology that is being developed at the moment in the world is changing very fast, and that's affecting our lives, isn't it? Like when any of you were born, nobody had mobile phones, computers yet, I would imagine. There's no one very young here. So you've all known a time when you didn't have a mobile phone, you didn't have a computer. We didn't go online to do purchasing things and to find out and Google things and all the online activities we do. There was a time when we didn't do that. Now you're doing that quite normally. Now as soon as I stop speaking, you're all going to get your phone out and start looking at what's the latest message, who said something. That's our life now, isn't it? It's changing. Maybe one day whatever job you're doing will be done by a robot. Artificial intelligence is coming in more and more. They'll decide, the government jobs, the bank jobs, this job, that job. Maybe when you need your car fixed, you'll take it to the mechanic and it will be a robot. and the robot arm will fix things on your car. Every job may one day be done by robots or artificial intelligence, or at least be affected by that. Our world is changing very fast. But if you practice what the Buddha taught, your mind is going to accept that and understand how to deal with that. Because as these changes take place, they affect us, don't they? You know, your job changes, you might get upset that your job has changed, or maybe you lose your job, or you have to find a new job. That will affect us, doesn't it? How we relate to each other affects us. You know, before we would go on our bicycle down the road in Melaka and visit our friend. Now we ring them on the phone and ring them. We don't need to go around there anymore. We can just talk to them on the phone. Or maybe because technology is changing, now we've got air travel. Maybe your sons and daughters or brothers and sisters, they've gone working in another country, so now you FaceTime them when you want to talk to them. Things are changing all the time. And to keep up with that, we also need to be aware of ourselves, how our mind is working, how it's dealing and coping with change. So the practice of mindfulness is going to be very, very helpful to you, because mindfulness keeps you paying attention to what's going on. So if you're changing in any aspect of your life, you can be aware of that change and know this is normal, because that's what the Buddhist teachings show us. When you're mindfulness, you see change is normal, and you don't react so much with the ups and downs, the aversion, the attraction to change. You can see it's quite normal. So maybe your job does change, and that could be quite stressful, but as you practice mindfulness, you notice your reaction and you can tell yourself, change is normal. This is something that is just part of life. Maybe you move house, move job, move city, move from Melaka to KL to USA or Australia or wherever you might go. This is now becoming very normal. So you need to keep mindful of these changes, how we relate to each other in the family. Like, how many of you talk to your family members face to face now? There'll be a few you talk face to face. The rest is all on the phone, isn't it? You're no longer actually hearing or seeing each other so much. That affects your mind as well. But as you become more mindful, you can be mindful of the changing technology or the changing habits of human beings. It will help. It will help your emotions to stay balanced. You know, maybe you notice some people, when they get angry with talking to someone on the phone, they get really angry, they throw the phone down, they blame the phone and they break their phone. It happens. I was talking to a doctor a while ago. They said there's this new phenomena, particularly young people, but not just young people. They're getting new injuries that they never used to get. One of the injuries is they're getting broken noses, cuts and noses on their noses. Can you imagine why? It's because they're lying in bed at night using their phone, and then they fall asleep and the phone falls on their face. It's not just a few, it's thousands and thousands of people are getting these injuries now. Or another famous, well-known one is boy and girl, you know, brother and sister, or two friends, they're fighting over their phone. And one of them wins, and the phone again comes back and hits them on the face, so they get a cut somewhere on their face, because they're fighting over the physical phone. It may sound quite ordinary, but when you're practicing mindfulness, you start to realize some of our problems in life are because we're not very aware of changes and what's going on around us. Even very ordinary activities can become a cause of suffering for us if we're not mindful. So like, you know, this same doctor, they were saying in Australia, maybe in 1 year you might get about 800 people on average swallow their toothbrush when they're brushing their teeth, because they're not mindful. You know, you're brushing your teeth, maybe you're listening to something, or you're looking at something, you're looking at your phone, or someone is talking to you and you're brushing your teeth and you look at them and oh, you swallowed it. 800 people a year. A few of those 800, the brush doesn't go down the throat to the stomach, it goes down to the lungs. And then there's choking, they have to be rushed to hospital because they're not breathing. That's all because they're not being mindful of brushing their teeth. You think every day you brush your teeth 2 or 3 times maybe. Yeah. It's a very repetitive, common action, but if you're not mindful, it can be life-threatening. Who would have thought, brushing your teeth is life-threatening? But it can be. The other day we were in town, going somewhere, the monks were in a car, being taken somewhere, and we saw a car, it was the school run, like 9 o'clock in the morning. Mum is taking a car full of kids to the school. Mum was brushing her teeth as she's driving the car. She obviously didn't have enough time to get everyone ready, so she got in the car, the kids are in the car, they're driving to school, and Mum is still brushing her teeth. Life is like that now. It's very hectic. We got many things we have to do, many activities to complete. Even if you're a housewife, you've got to clean, you've got to look after the kids, do this, go there, you've got to be a chauffeur. So many activities, after school activities. They're getting very tired, very stressed, and that's mum and dad, everyone. Life is getting quite hectic, so you need to have some mindfulness to deal with this. Otherwise you feel pressured by the rush. I mean, I don't know how bad it is in Melaka, but I notice there's a lot of traffic now, and the old people say, well, it used to be just bicycles, now it's traffic jam everywhere. And that's the same all over the world now, traffic everywhere. Everyone has a car, so you've got to find a place to park, you've got to drive from activity to activity, be the chauffeur. It's not wrong, but you'll need some mindfulness to do all this. Otherwise, driving a car without mindfulness is dangerous. If you can risk your life with your brushing your teeth, you certainly can risk your life driving a car. Like somebody came to the monastery the other day and they were saying, I have a phobia of flying. It's quite common, a fear of flying. How can I deal with that? So I was giving them some instruction on how to practice mindfulness of getting into a plane, sitting down, dealing with the panic or the feeling, the uncomfortable feeling. But I also pointed out, it's much more dangerous driving in your car to work than it is getting on a plane. Plane crashes are quite rare. Car crashes are much more common. We often forget this, don't we? We have our one thing we're attached to, and we don't realize, actually, very ordinary things also we need to be mindful of as well. Whatever it is, in the end, whatever you're afraid of, mindfulness can help, because it helps you just to calm down in the present moment. So if you are getting on a plane and you're afraid, take a few moments to do mindfulness of the breath, say. You sit down, take a few deep breaths, and you're going to start to feel more relaxed, because if you're following the breath, you can't follow those thoughts of fear. You have to let them go while you watch the breath. So those thoughts of fear will have less power over your mind at that time. This is why the Buddha taught us to practice mindfulness with the breathing, because sometimes it really helps us to calm down when we're angry, to settle our mind when we're panicking or afraid, or if we're very obsessed with something, it helps us to become more aware, calm down and see what we're getting obsessed. So like somebody I know was having trouble with addiction to gambling. And they said, how can I deal with gambling? I said, well, practice this mindfulness of breathing. Why? Because when you practice mindfulness of breathing, you can start turning your mind to that when you have your strong passion, your strong thoughts coming up to gamble. That's the time to do a few minutes mindfulness of breathing, just to turn your mind away from what it's getting stuck on or attached to. Like ultimately we practice mindfulness to see where our mind is attaching, because attachment leads on to suffering. So say you are attached to gambling as a habit, every time the thought comes up, you need something to help you pull your mind away from that thought to gamble. And if you go to the thought just to be aware of your breath, it's very soothing, very relaxing, and it helps you to ignore or let go of the thought to gamble. So you gain some mindfulness. This makes your mind a little stronger, and you may actually be able to let go of the thought to gamble, even if you are very addicted to it. And any kind of addiction, if you want to let go of it, that's what you've got to do. You've got to learn how to bring up mindfulness and basically say no to the thought that's the addiction, whether it's addicted to cigarettes, gambling, drinking, pornography, or maybe it's just addiction to losing your temper, because that's a habit, isn't it? You can get addicted to losing your temper. Every little thing goes wrong, you get angry, and then you're suffering. So you either give in to that every time and that habit gets stronger and it gets easier for you to lose your temper. Maybe the older you get, the easier. Or sometimes maybe you practice mindfulness, you realize, there's another way here. I don't have to just follow the angry thoughts. I can also bring up the mindfulness, maybe using the breath meditation, or bring up the thought of metta, loving kindness, and you pull your thinking mind away from the anger to this better, more wholesome, more skillful way, where you go to the breath, calm yourself down. And this is not too difficult. It's not something that just monks do in the forest. Monks do it, but you can all do this as well. There's probably no one here who never loses their temper. Probably sometimes you do. So what do you do when you lose your temper? Well, what the Buddha suggested is to bring up mindfulness. Number one, be mindful, be aware. Oh, I'm losing my temper. That helps you to get an understanding what's going on in your mind in that situation. You become more aware. Oh, I'm losing my temper. When I lose my temper, how do I feel? Do I feel happy? No. Is it leading on to good things, beneficial things when I lose my temper? No. Therefore, the most useful thing at that time is actually to find a way to let go of my angry thoughts, control my temper, let go of the anger, bring my mind back to normality. That would be my goal in that situation. I think you would all agree with that. But it's not easy. It takes practice, doesn't it? So you could say, what is meditation? Well, it's practicing for all these situations where you've got suffering coming up, learning how to deal with it skillfully, well. So just as some people go exercise, some of you do Tai Chi in the morning, you go to the park or wherever and you do your Tai Chi exercise or yoga. Maybe we should also spend some time doing some mindfulness meditation to exercise our mind, make our mind stronger. So say you do have some anger coming up, somebody annoys you, something goes wrong, you're angry with your own health because it's not improving, whatever. When those angry thoughts come up, train yourself to practice mindfulness at that time. Catch those angry thoughts. Teach yourself to let them go. To let go, you need to focus your mind on something different. So maybe focus your mind on the breath. Let go of the anger. Focus your mind on the thought of goodwill, metta. To bring up the thought, oh, relax, it's okay, let it go. Teach yourself to let go of the cause of your suffering. And the Buddha pointed out, nobody can do this for us. You can't get this from a monk blessing you. The monk can encourage you, but they can't do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. That's why it's the most meritorious thing when you do this kind of practice. You're actually purifying, improving your mind. And we can do it. It's not like we have to be angry as human beings. We don't. We can change our mind anytime we wish to. Because ultimately it's our own responsibility. We can do this as human beings. Why do I say that? Well, the Buddha proved it. Ajahn proved it. And many, many other people, not just monks, but lay people as well, they've proven it. It can be done. But we have to do it. So all of this I've been talking to you tonight, it's all what we call making merit. Making merit through practicing generosity, making merit through practicing sila, morality or virtue, making merit through bhavana, training in mindfulness, and learning to recognize the causes of suffering that are arising in your own mind and letting them go. By being mindful and then reflecting, watching what's going on and seeing, I need to let go of my greed, my anger, my worry, my fear, whatever's causing you trouble, that's what you have to let go of. So this is the new year. A few days ago was New Year's Day, so maybe to finish the talk, I'll just wish you all well for the new year. And when a Buddhist monk wishes you well, what we're really doing is wishing that you make more merit for yourselves and for your families and for your society in the new year. It's not just asking me to give you a blessing so that you have a good year. I will give you a blessing and wish you a good year, of course. But really you have to do the blessing for yourself. Ultimately you're responsible for your own happiness. You have to make that effort. And there's no way around it. You know, we all would like life to be very easy, don't have to do anything, just sit back, take it easy. We all want to be lazy. That's understandable. Human beings love to be lazy. But it won't work. It's not good enough, because your mind will you'll get caught out and you'll find you're suffering again. So everything the Buddha taught requires a little bit of effort, practice, doing it. Dana, Sila, Bhavana, this all requires effort. So I'm wishing you that you make more effort in your practice in the new year, and you're helping each other when you do it. Like you've all come tonight to listen to the talk. When you do it together, you get some group energy, so you try harder. Like we just had a meditation retreat at our monastery in Melbourne, and people were saying, when you see other people practicing, doing the meditation, you try harder. Because you see them doing it, you want to do it. You know, if you are thinking, oh, I can't be bothered, I'm going to stop and go and do something else, but then you see other people are still meditating, you feel shy, don't you? You think, oh, if they're doing it, I better carry on. You feel guilty if you stop, because they're still doing it. We actually had an all-night meditation session on New Year's Eve. We went from 7 p.m. through till 5 a.m. Many people, over 100 people. There's about 200 in all, but some of them did sneak away for a rest. But over 100 people did the whole night. They didn't give up. They did sitting meditation, walking meditation, they did chanting. And they said it's easy when you got other people, you got friends doing it as well. Because you see them doing it, then you try. So part of my New Year's blessing for you all is also that you help each other. When you're doing dana, help each other, support each other. You come to the center here, Sakya Yen Center, come and help each other do dana, look after the place, come to the study sessions, come to listen to the talks, come to do the Sanghadana with the monks, whatever's going on. When you support each other, you get more energy as well. And when you go home as well, be a blessing to your family, you know, be a good example to your family, help them by doing these practices so they can see, and particularly the young people. Like many of you will come to the monks and say, oh, I'd really like my children to understand Buddhism. I want them to be good Buddhists, to practice meditation, do dana, but they're not interested. How can we get them interested? Number one thing that will get your children interested is if you do it, if you're a good example. Like sometimes people come to me in my monastery, like a father will come and say, my son is 18 now, I'm really worried about him. I think he's going to start drinking with his friends, drinking alcohol. I want him to stop, or I don't want him to start that. So I say, oh, it's a good idea. Do you drink? Oh yeah, of course I drink. So if dad drinks, you know, it's unlikely son is not going to drink because he sees dad do it. We follow our peers, our parents, our friends. So if you want your kids to be good Buddhists and practice some of these things, you have to show them by example. Same with meditation. Some parents, they come, they say, can you teach my daughter how to meditate? I say, I can, but do you meditate? Oh, no time for that. Well, the kid is going to get an example that, oh, mum and dad don't have time to meditate. Why should I? I've got no time. I'm always on Facebook talking to my friends. I don't have time either. We'll have excuses, won't we? So if you want your children to benefit from the Buddhist teachings, you have to make a sacrifice as well. Try to be a good example. At the very least, they'll see what you do. Sometimes they may follow as well, but they'll see what you do. And you'll understand yourself better, understand how to lead them and guide them in what they're doing. And sometimes you have to be a little bit smart as well. Like in the time of the Buddha, they still had this problem. It's not a modern problem. You all know about Anathapindika, the wealthy merchant who was a disciple of the Buddha. He had his son. When his son was a teenager, he didn't want to go and see the Buddha and listen to the Buddha give talks. He didn't want to go to the temple. Boring. His son wanted to go out with his friends, hang out, play, do whatever he was doing with his friends. And the father was really worried. The father had faith in the Buddha and he wanted his son to benefit from that. So he thought, how on earth can I get my son involved with the Buddha and his teachings? So he thought up a plan. He said, my son needs a bit of pocket money to go out with his friends, so I got a way to get him pocket money. So he said, son, I'm working, I don't have so much time, but I need you to go and listen to the Buddha's Dhamma talk every week. Every week the Buddha gives a Dhamma talk. I want to know what he said. Can you go? And in those days there's no iPhone to record the talk. In those days you can go, you have to remember it, listen and remember. And then you come back, you tell me, and I'll give you, 1 gold piece, whatever. So you get pocket money and I'll get to hear what the Buddha said. Do you agree? And the son said, okay, sounds like a good deal. I'll get some pocket money here. All I have to do is go to the temple, sit, listen to the Buddha, and go and tell Dad afterwards. So they started doing this. And the Buddha was giving very good teachings, and he made his teachings so that Anathapindika's son could understand well. He'd go home and see his dad, and Dad said, so what did the Buddha teach today? And his son had to remember everything the Buddha said and recount it to his father, tell his father. And father said, oh, very good, that was a really good talk. And here's your gold pieces, your pocket money. Son is very happy, goes off. This went on for many days, many weeks, months, maybe 6 months, something like that. And then one day the son came back from the monastery, the Jetavana, and he came back and he went to his father and he said, Father, today the Buddha taught all about impermanence or making merit or whatever. This is what the Buddha said. And the father said, oh, thank you very much, that was a great talk. And the son just walked off. And the father was confused. He said, oh, he didn't ask for any gold pieces today, he didn't want his pocket money, what's wrong? So he called his son back and he said, why didn't you ask for any money today? You went to the temple, you did your job, I should pay you. And the son said, no, I really enjoy going to the temple, listening to these talks. They're so valuable to me, I'm understanding so much. You don't need to pay me, I'm happy to go. And off his son went, and the father went, yes. He's got his son interested in the Dhamma, so he started by hiring him to listen to the talk. Later, his son is convinced, he knows the Buddha is giving good talks. So after that, he didn't have to pay him, his son wanted to go. So sometimes you might have to do it like that, like here we have activities for the kids, get them involved, have Dhamma school, have other activities, camp, programs, that's good. Sometimes you have to do that. You bring them in. In Thailand, we used to have one monastery. I was living in the forest, miles from anywhere, and the kids weren't coming. Only the parents would come to the monastery to help. So we thought, we've got to get the kids in. So we said, we're going to have a working bee. A working bee means like volunteer day. Sometimes they call it good karma day, where people come in and they do work in the forest, they clear paths, they tidy things up, do some gardening. So we're having a working bee. So we told all the villagers, we said, we've got a working bee for the kids. And we said, all those with faith come. So the first time in the morning, we had about 20 kids come as all the girls. And we looked and said, oh, no boys, that's a shame. The boys not interested. But then we noticed something. The girls came and they liked it. So they stayed the whole day. Second time, we had 20 girls and we had 20 boys. So we asked, how come the boys are coming this time? And they said, well, wherever the girls go, the boys go. So it worked. We got the boys into the monastery following the girls. So sometimes you have to have these roundabout ways to get the young people involved in Dhamma. That's normal because they're young. As I said earlier, when I started practicing meditation, I didn't fully understand what it's all about. It took me a while to get to understand, get to know it. But this is the value of the Dhamma. We pass it from parent down to children. So we have to be a good example first, and then you'll help bring the young ones in. If you never do it, they're never going to do it, because they'll say, well, mum and dad never go, why should I go? So my New Year's wish for you all is that you all keep on doing your practice, do the dana, keep the precepts, do your meditation, learn the Dhamma, come to these events, and slowly, hopefully, it will also bring the young ones in, and then you can pass Buddhism from generation down to generation. We've had 100 years of Seck Yen, which is an amazing length of time. So I hope you have another 100 years for the center, and Buddhism continues to flourish in Melaka, and not just you, but all your family and your children and your children's children benefit from it. So I'll finish the talk there and wish you all a Happy New Year. I don't know, do we have time for Q&A maybe? Q&A? Okay. Does anyone have a question? Don't be shy. You want to find out anything about Buddhism or meditation or me or my monastery or anything? You're all well trained, you're very polite. Did you understand what I was talking about? Good. You had a question, yeah? On the retreat, the first meditation we taught was metta, focusing on the thought of spreading loving kindness to oneself and then others. The second meditation we taught was anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, which is a little more hard but very rewarding the more you do it. The third we taught was vipassana, contemplation. And really these three things all come out of the one mind, so they're very closely linked. It's just the one mind. So Ajahn Chah used to say, really, in practice, they're inseparable. If you have metta, you will also be able to follow the breath. If you have mindfulness with the breathing, with the metta, you can also contemplate the three characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self, what we call vipassana. They all come out of the one mind. But we do discuss different aspects of training this mind just to help everyone have an overview and a better understanding. So do you do any meditation? And what do you learn on those retreats? Jhana, but how do you attain jhana? What method? Well, what is it? Do you use anapanasati or any other thing? Anapanasati? Okay, good. Well, just keep doing the practice. If it's worked for you so far, keep doing it. And keep becoming more skilled at maintaining your mindfulness, and not just during meditation, but in daily life as well. One of the hardest things is when you finish the retreat, you go to work or back home, then you're often not so mindful. So try to keep up mindfulness in daily life.